They said family never turns its back on you, until mine did. One holiday. One accusation. One sentence that unraveled a lifetime of loyalty. Return the $50,000, or don't come home again. No trial. No questions. Just silence where love used to be. And in that silence, I found something stronger than forgiveness. I found the truth. This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's about what happens when you're framed by your own blood, and what you do when no one believes you. My name is Rachel. I was the daughter, the sister, the responsible one. Until they decided I was the thief. But if they wanted to make me the villain? They forgot one thing. I investigate people like them for a living. And I brought receipts. If you've ever been doubted by the people who should have known you best. If you've ever walked away from a house that used to be your home. You're not alone. Welcome to ErasedMe, where we tell the stories they tried to bury. Stories about truth, silence, and the price of being the one who speaks up. Subscribe to join others who refuse to stay quiet. Comment if you've ever had to choose peace over family. Share this if you believe that truth deserves to be heard even when it hurts. Now, let's begin. I was still holding the pie when it happened. Pumpkin, homemade, still warm. I'd baked it the night before with Mom's old recipe, the one she always insisted needed just a whisper of maple syrup and an extra pinch of nutmeg. I'd driven 3 hours through fog just to bring it to her. It was Thanksgiving. I thought I was home. The turkey hadn't been carved yet. The stuffing was still steaming in Mom's crystal dish, the one she only pulled out once a year. Lisa sat across the table, her hands folded like she was at a funeral. David stared at his plate. Mom hovered by the sink, drying her hands with the same faded towel from my childhood. And then Dad looked up at me and said, calm and final. Give back the $50,000, Rachel. Or don't bother coming home again. I didn't understand. Not at first. I thought he was joking, some weird dry humor he'd picked up in retirement. But no one laughed. No one moved. The pie in my hands suddenly felt too heavy. It hit me, this wasn't about dinner. This wasn't even about money. This was about trust. Or whatever was left of it. And I'd just walked straight into the ambush. At first, I genuinely thought I'd misheard him. $50,000? What money? Why would he say something like that, especially now, especially here? But then Lisa raised her eyes, rimmed red, mascara clinging in messy streaks like she'd been crying for hours. And David wouldn't even look at me. That's when I realized this wasn't spontaneous. This was rehearsed. Mom's eyes dropped to her lap. She couldn't even look at me. I still hadn't sat down. My coat was still draped over the chair. The pie still sat in my hands like it mattered. Like it could fix anything. What exactly are you accusing me of? I asked. My voice didn't sound like mine. Too flat, too calm. Lisa spoke first. Mom's account. $50,000 disappeared last month. Right after you helped her set up online banking. I blinked. I had helped Mom with her accounts. She didn't trust the cloud, hated the idea of paperless anything. I'd sat with her one afternoon, walked her through the app, even made her write down all the login details in that little floral notepad she kept in the kitchen drawer. But that was 4 weeks ago. You think I took it? I whispered. David's voice came next, low and pained. The bank confirmed the withdrawals were online. No one else had access. Just you. The silence afterward was thick. Not awkward. Not confused. Certain. That's when I knew. They didn't just suspect me. They'd already decided I was guilty. I didn't yell. Didn't throw the pie. Didn't beg for them to believe me. I just stood there. Still. Numb. Mom's napkin trembled in her hand. Dad looked away. Lisa kept her eyes on her lap like if she didn't see me, I couldn't be real. David shifted uncomfortably, but said nothing more. No one did. The room, filled moments ago with the warmth of a holiday meal, now felt hollow. Performative. Like all the years of tradition could be erased with a single accusation. I set the pie down, gently, absurdly careful, like it still mattered somehow. Then I picked up my coat. You have until the end of the week, Dad said, not looking at me. Then we go to the lawyer. And that was it. No one stopped me. No one asked me to explain. No one even asked me if I was okay. I walked out without a word. The door clicked shut behind me, louder than it should have. I didn't cry in the car. Didn't scream, didn't pound the steering wheel like they do in movies. I just drove. The pie sat untouched on the counter. The roads were quiet. The houses still glowed with soft lights, paper turkeys taped to windows, families gathered around tables. And me? I was the only one in town who smelled like betrayal. It was Thanksgiving night. And my family had just kicked me out. Not with violence, not with rage. But with silence and certainty. I checked into a roadside and I'd driven past 100 times but never stopped at. The clerk didn't ask why I needed a room on Thanksgiving night, and I was grateful for that. The place smelled like old carpet and burnt coffee. I didn't care. I kicked off my boots, sat on the edge of the bed, and stared at the wall. 34 years old. Senior forensic accountant. I'd tracked down missing millions, uncovered offshore shell corporations, helped take down 2 CFOs in federal court. But my family thought I stole from them. And the worst part? A small voice inside me whispered, of course they did. There had been signs. Little cracks. Lisa's sideways comments when Mom bragged about my promotions. Dad asking if maybe it was time to slow down and live a little, as if working hard meant I wasn't living. Even last Christmas, when I offered to help pay for their new roof, David muttered that I was buying their approval. I thought it was sibling teasing. Family noise. Nothing serious. But now? Now I was replaying that Sunday afternoon with Mom, setting up the bank app, creating her login, writing the passwords down in the little notepad we kept in the kitchen drawer. The drawer no one ever locked. The drawer anyone could open. The more I thought about it, the more it didn't make sense. Yes, I had set up the account. Yes, the credentials were written down. But it wasn't like I'd hidden anything. I'd walked Mom through every step, sat beside her, explained what each button did, made sure she felt comfortable. She'd even thanked me afterward, said I made something scary feel manageable. That didn't sound like someone I'd manipulate. So why was I the only suspect? My phone buzzed. A text from Lisa. We didn't want it to come to this. But you made it hard to trust you. No happy Thanksgiving. No, are you okay? Just that. As if I'd broken something. As if I was the one who owed them an apology. I stared at the screen until it blurred, then turned it face down. The room was quiet, except for the soft hum of the heater kicking on. My hands were still trembling. At work, I spend my days following money trails, uncovering fraud, analyzing patterns, separating truth from manipulation. I know what it looks like when someone covers their tracks. I know what it means when blame lands too neatly on one person. Someone had made sure it would look like me. Someone had gone through that drawer, taken what they needed, and waited. They'd framed me. And everyone else had swallowed it whole. If they wanted to treat me like the criminal in the family, maybe it was time I started investigating like one. I woke up the next morning before sunrise. No alarm, no dreams, just that heavy knot of instinct that something wasn't right. Years of chasing down financial discrepancies had trained my brain to click into gear before my body even caught up. I poured myself a terrible cup of lobby coffee and opened my laptop on the motel's chip desk. Money doesn't just disappear. It moves, quietly, deliberately, and if you know where to look, it leaves a trail. My firm had recently been investigating a series of elder financial abuse cases. Modest retirement accounts drained in 3 quick withdrawals, each just under the federal reporting threshold. It had happened across multiple banks, but one name kept coming up again and again. Greenwell Mutual. Mom's bank. I hadn't told anyone I was working that case, it was confidential, but I had access. And I knew exactly who to ask. I messaged Theo, our compliance officer, and gave him a name, a date range, and a location. No explanation needed. He didn't ask questions. Within an hour, he sent me everything. 3 withdrawals. Spaced 5 days apart. October 10th, 15th, and 20th. First $20,000. Then $15,000. Then another $15,000. But none of them were online. Every single withdrawal had been made in person. That was it, the first crack in their story. They said I was the only one with online access. But the money didn't disappear from behind a screen. It was handed over a bank counter. And I had just found the beginning of my way back. Along with the transaction logs, Theo had included something else, security footage. 3 separate files. Low resolution, time-stamped, each from the same Greenwell Mutual branch. I clicked the first one. October 10th, 2:13 p.m. A young woman approached the counter, glancing over her shoulder, wearing a gray hoodie and oversized sunglasses. Her hair was pulled back in a tight ponytail. For a second, I thought it might be a stranger, someone hired to impersonate Mom. It's happened before. People get desperate. But then she stepped closer to the camera and pulled her mask down to speak to the teller. My stomach dropped. Lisa. Even with the grainy image, there was no mistaking her. I'd braided that hair for school plays. I'd picked her up from parties and patched up scraped knees. And now she was leaning over a teller window with what looked like Mom's ID in her hand. She signed a form. Her handwriting hadn't changed since high school. I clicked the second video. October 15th, same branch. David this time. No disguise, no hoodie. Just a navy sweater, a relaxed smile. He chatted with the teller like he belonged there. Signed something. Took the cash. I didn't even bother with the third clip, I knew it would be Lisa again. I played it anyway. Same hoodie. Different sunglasses. The arrogance made my skin crawl. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't someone borrowing money in a panic. They had planned this. Waited for me to help Mom go digital. Then used that to make me their scapegoat. I should have felt relief, vindication, even. But mostly, I felt cold. Because this wasn't just about stolen money anymore. It was about how calculated they had been. I kept replaying the timeline in my head. 2 weeks before I helped Mom set up her online banking, she'd had some outpatient scans at the hospital, nothing serious, just routine tests. Lisa had volunteered to stay overnight with her. Mom's purse had been with her the whole time. Her checkbook. Her driver's license. Bank statements. That's where it started. But it didn't end there. I opened the metadata from the banking app. The first login after I left town hadn't come from Mom's phone. It came from a tablet connected to the home Wi-Fi. Same IP address Lisa used to stream Netflix in the living room. The account recovery email? One I didn't register. I looked it up. The linked recovery phone number belonged to David. They weren't just sloppy. They were confident. Too confident. Confident I'd never check. Confident no one would question the obvious choice, the successful daughter, the one who handled the finances, the one who didn't need the money, so clearly she must have taken it. It was so clean it was almost elegant. And that's what made it feel personal. They hadn't just stolen from Mom. They'd used me as the cover. Weaponized trust. Twisted love. And now the people who shared my childhood, my holidays, my history, they were counting on me to stay silent. They thought guilt would keep me quiet. But all it did was sharpen my focus. I didn't call the police. Not yet. Instead, I called my office. Theo picked up on the second ring. I asked for one more favor, copies of the teller slips, the signatures. I told him I'd explain later. He didn't press. Then I pulled my suitcase from under the motel bed and unzipped the lining. Inside was a slim black folder, sleek, professional, the kind I used for court presentations and boardroom reviews. It held nothing yet. But it would. Because I wasn't walking back into that house with just a story. I was walking in with receipts. I organized everything, screenshots, timestamps, IP logs, metadata, stills from the surveillance footage. I printed out the teller slips and matched them against handwriting samples I'd collected from around the house over the years. A post-it note from Lisa on the fridge. A birthday card from David. It all aligned. They hadn't just stolen money. They'd crafted a narrative and cast me in the starring role. But here's the thing about stories, when they're built on lies, the truth isn't just disruptive, it's dangerous. By the time I zipped the folder closed, my hands weren't shaking anymore. If they wanted a villain in the family, I'd show them what it looked like when the villain brought documentation. I didn't call ahead. I just drove. Monday afternoon. The sun was low, casting that soft golden light that always used to make the house feel like home. But this time, it didn't. Not even close. Their cars were all there: David's SUV, Lisa's compact, Mom's old sedan. No guests. Just family. I parked at the curb. Sat there for a moment, the engine ticking as it cooled. The folder rested on my lap, warm from the sun and heavier than it should have been. Then I got out. I walked up the steps and let myself in. No knocking. No hesitation. The house smelled like chicken broth and rosemary. Something simmered on the stove. Silverware clinked. Someone laughed, light, casual, like none of this had ever happened. They were in the kitchen. Lisa was perched on the counter, legs swinging, coffee mug in hand like a teenager again. David leaned against the fridge, arms crossed. Mom stood by the sink, drying dishes. Dad stirred something in a pot. They all looked up when I walked in. No one said anything. I walked past them, straight to the island, and placed the folder down where we used to roll out cookie dough. I didn't take Mom's money, I said. My voice was steady. Calm. But I think it's time you all saw who did. I opened the folder and pulled out the first photo, Lisa, signing a form at the bank. October 10th, $20,000. The silence cracked, small, sharp. No one moved. Then I laid down the second photo. David. October 15th. And just like that, the kitchen wasn't quiet anymore. It was charged. Like a storm had just rolled through the front door and settled in my hands. I laid out the teller slips next, side by side, identical signatures, same branch, same handwriting. Then I pulled the note from the fridge. The one Lisa wrote last week reminding Mom about her doctor's appointment. Same loops. Same slant. Same lowercase g. Lisa's mug froze midair. Her fingers gripped the handle tighter. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. You went through our stuff, she finally said, her voice sharp, thin. I tilted my head, almost gently. You went through Mom's. Mom reached forward slowly, fingertips brushing the documents like they might burn her. She didn't speak at first. Just read. Her eyes moved over the print, hands unsteady. But the bank, she said, voice trembling, they told me it was done online. That's what they thought, I replied. But the withdrawals weren't digital. They were made in person. The online access came later, set up on a tablet connected to your Wi-Fi. The account recovery email was tied to David's phone number. No one spoke. Dad had stopped stirring. Lisa looked away. David stared down at the tile like the truth might rearrange itself if he blinked hard enough. Then Mom said it, soft, almost to herself. You let me believe my daughter stole from me. I didn't answer. She wasn't even looking at me. Maybe she couldn't. And you, I said quietly, told me not to come home. The room felt smaller suddenly. Air thicker. It wasn't just the money. It was the silence that followed the accusation. The way none of them had asked. Not once. Whether I actually did it. Lisa finally met my eyes. Not with guilt, but something colder, bitterness. You always get everything, she said, her voice cracking around the edges. The job. The praise. The respect. I just wanted to level the field. I studied her face. She looked older than last week. Or maybe I was just seeing her clearly for the first time. You didn't level anything, I said. You burned it. David cleared his throat, but he didn't argue. She'll be fine, Mom, he muttered. Rachel makes more than all of us combined. It wasn't personal. I let out a slow breath, my hands resting on the edge of the counter. It's always personal when it's family. Mom sat down heavily at the table, the folder still open in front of her. She didn't touch it. Just stared at it like she was waiting for it to disappear. Her hands folded loosely in her lap, palms up, like she didn't know what to do with them. Finally, Dad spoke. Rachel, what are you going to do? I looked at him, really looked, and saw someone smaller than I remembered. Tired. Worn down. I'm not pressing charges, I said. But I've sent everything to the family attorney. What happens next is your decision. I zipped the folder shut. Years of professional habit made the motions smooth, practiced. You told me not to come back unless I returned the money, I said, stepping back. I didn't take the money. But I brought the truth. Rachel, Mom's voice broke behind me. I paused in the doorway. Not to turn back. Just to listen. Thanksgiving's over, I said. You all made sure of that. Then I walked out. No one followed. No one called after me. No one reached for my hand or asked me to stay. I got into my car and sat there for a while, watching the kitchen window from the curb. The lights stayed on. Lisa's laughter didn't return. David didn't open the door. No one came running. And that told me everything I needed to know. Back in Boston, I moved through life like nothing had changed. I went back to work. Answered emails. Led meetings. But something inside me had gone quiet. I stopped calling on Sunday nights. Stopped responding in the family group chat. Let the voicemail icon blink for 3 days before I finally listened to it. It was from Mom. Rachel, we were wrong. I know that now. I didn't want to believe it. I'm sorry. I don't expect you to forgive us. I just wanted you to know, the house feels empty. She hung up before the minute mark. 2 weeks later, a letter came. Inside, a photo of me, Lisa, and David as kids, dressed in mismatched Halloween costumes. On the back, just one line. We didn't know how much we'd miss you until you were gone. I didn't respond. I kept the folder, tucked in a drawer under old tax returns. I haven't opened it since. I don't need to. The facts haven't changed. And neither have they. Sometimes, the deepest wounds aren't caused by strangers, they're carved by the people we trust most. This story reminds us that betrayal doesn't always wear a mask. It can sit across the dinner table, wrapped in silence and assumptions. It shows how quickly love can turn into suspicion when communication is replaced by judgment, and how damaging it is when no one bothers to ask, "Did you really do this?" For anyone who has ever been wrongly blamed, pushed away, or forced to carry the weight of someone else's lies, this is a call to remember your worth. You don't need to stay silent to keep peace. Truth, when spoken calmly and clearly, is not an act of war. It's an act of self-respect. And for families, especially as we grow older and our relationships evolve, never let pride speak louder than love. A question asked with honesty is worth more than 100 apologies offered too late. If this story moved you, made you think, or reminded you of something in your own life, consider subscribing to our channel ErasedMe. We share real, raw stories that speak to the quiet strength inside us all. Please share this with someone who values truth, even when it's uncomfortable. And if you've ever felt unheard or misjudged, leave a comment below, because your voice matters. And sometimes, just telling your story is the first step toward healing.